In today's video, I want to talk about how to do a quilt from start to finish. We're going to do a whole series of videos, but today's is going to be about how to select fabric for a quilt. So the quilt we're going to be making in this series is this little guy right back here. It is called a rail fence quilt. Each block is made out of a rail block, which is what this is right here. And I'm going to show you how to pick your fabrics, how to cut your fabrics, how to piece it, how to press it. Then we're going to put the quilt top together, and then I'm going to show you how to add borders. And then the last couple of videos we're going to do layering and quilting, very basic quilting, and then we will finally bind our quilt. So this is just a whole series, so if you've never made a quilt before, you'll have all the basics to then go out and make other quilts. So you don't need to have anything in hand for this class. I want to talk about the fabrics. So obviously you can see where my final fabric choices were in the quilt, but how we usually start is we usually will go to a shop or be online and we will find a fabric that we absolutely love. So this was the main print in this group, and I had originally envisioned this as the outer border out here where we have the chicken print. But once I started pulling all the coordinates together and all the fabrics together, I realized that this was really, really dominant and had a lot going on. But this is also the print that has the most colors in it that I know I'm going to put in the quilt. So when you're going to look for fabric for a quilt, you want to find a fabric that is going to become your focus fabric. And in this case, we're going to say this is the focus fabric. It's usually of a larger scale print. It usually has multiple colors in it or patterning in it. And we're going to pull our colors from it. There are a million different ways to pick fabric for a quilt. This is the way I was taught, and actually after 23 years and thousands of quilts later, I still kind of use this approach when I'm sorting fabrics for a group. So we have this print. It has flowers, it has yellow, it has orange, it has blue, purple, pink, red. It has all kinds of different colors in it. And what we do from there is pull other fabrics that the colors match this. So we have this as our main print, and then we have greens that we can mix into the batch. And I have some yellows because there's yellow in the quilt fabric. And then we have a series of prints that have reds in them. And these can all be used, or some of them can be used. But we're going to talk a little bit about color and how much of each kind of color we want to use. And then finally, we have some blues and purples that will also work very well in this quilt. So originally, this is what I pulled out to pick my fabrics from, as you can see here. And again, this was originally my focus print. So you can see all of these colors are in here. The other thing you want to look at is your print size. What is the scale of the fabric? This being the larger scale, then we also have the chickens, which are a larger scale print as well. And then we have the suns that are a larger print. So we have 3 prints that were larger. Then we have the diamond prints and the polka dot prints. There's the diamond and the polka dot. These are medium scale, at least in relation to other prints in the group. And then finally, we have these little chicken feathers caught on the chicken wire. We have this in 2 different colors. This would be considered the small or tiny print. So you want to look at your focus, the scale of your fabric prints, small, medium, large, and you want to look at the colors. And I'm pulling the colors in this case from my focus fabric. So when you go find your fabric, you would put that out on the cutting table, or you're online in your cart so you can look at it, and you're going to pull your fabric colors out of the focus, but pay attention to your scale. You want to have a nice assortment of small, medium, and large scale, or even just tonal prints in your quilt. Now let's talk a little bit about color in general. There are warm colors, which are orange and yellow and red. And then there are cool colors that are blues and greens and purples. The caveat is some purples can be more like a raspberry, so they get warmer, and some greens can be more like a lime, so they get warmer. So you do want to look at the colors and decide, is it look more yellow to you or look more blue to you? If it looks more yellow, it's warm. If it looks more blue, it's a cooler color. This one here, the purple, I would consider that a cool blue purple. So that's just to give you, these are all cooler color. So now that we have all of these out here, we need to look at what our quilt looks like. So we have two different blocks. We have this block here that has flower, polka dot, sunshine. And we have this block here that's blue diamonds, red diamonds, and green polka dots. Then we have, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prints for your blocks. You need 1 print or fabric for your inner border, and you need 1 fabric for your outer border. So when you're picking these, you can see here, these are all very busy, very colorful, very bright. That is the look I was going for. So when I picked these bars, I was sitting here playing with these fabrics. So I'm going to lay out some different scenarios of what I would put together for the bars, because there's never just one way to do it. And then you can maybe pick up on how we're doing this. So we have our cool colors. We have our warm colors. We're going to say that goes there and that goes there. So you could have done one block of 3, all reds. So we could have done the red polka dots out here, the red yellow diamonds here, followed by the red feathers. Now, why would I put them in this order? Because these 2 outer prints are closer in scale and in color than this one. So this one can go in the middle to break those 2 up. So if you put them next to each other, they're going to kind of wash each other out. So this kind of gives us a break on the reds. So I could have done red blocks, and then I could have done blue blocks and just done red and blue. So every other block would be red and the others would be blue. And in this case, I would put these, the same idea, like that. I would put, these 2 are very similar. They're blue and yellow. This is blue and purple. The scale of these is bigger. The scale of this is smaller. So that's how I would sort these 3 if I was doing red bars and blue bars. That would have been a quieter look than what I got here. But again, I was going for very fun, kid-like quilt. Now, I had picked this for the borders. Once I started playing with the fabrics, I realized how busy and colorful this would be. So if I put this in as the border, it's just adding more riot of color, more movement, and it competes with the center. So once I got my bars picked, I went back to my focus fabric and realized I needed to go with something a little bit quieter, something to help frame all the movement and color that was going on in here. And that's when we decided to switch out the flowers and put them in the quilt and leave the chickens out here on the outer border. So some more bars that we could have done. I wanted to get some green in the quilt. And I really, there's no right or wrong way to put fabrics together. I try not to put the same print next to each other whenever possible. So I knew I needed to break those up. I also try not to put green next to red because it looks so Christmassy. So I went ahead and decided, okay, we were going to use the flowers for sure in the quilt, because I started picking all my colors based on this flower print. So I felt like I needed to put it in the quilt because it ties all these fabrics together. So we did the flowers, and I knew I could do either the diamonds or the sun. Let's get these out of the way so you can see this. So I knew we could do diamonds, or we could do the sun and then put something in the middle. And the sun and the flowers seem to balance each other. So that's why I decided to go with those 2. And then I wanted to break them up with another color. And if I put yellow in there, that would have worked. But you want to make sure you don't put too much yellow all together, or that's where your eye will be. Your eye is always attracted to warmer colors, whether it's red, yellow, or orange. And the blues and the greens and the purples, they kind of fade in the background. So I always consider them like the supporting cast in a play, and the red and the yellow and the orange are more like the stars of the show. That being said, you want to use them minimally because they will fight everything else for your attention. So I wanted to do this, and I thought it was just way too much yellow. So I went ahead and I popped in a little bit of red. And I could have done red and yellow, but that again gave me the same scenario of too much yellow. So we popped that one out, and I went ahead and did the polka dots, and I thought that was a nice balance. So that's how I got to the first set of strips. So those were decided, and that was the hardest part because they were the busiest prints and the biggest prints. So then for my second set, I wanted to make sure I brought some purple into the quilt, and the only purple in all of this is this blue purple diamond. So this guy was going to be in the quilt no matter what. So we knew we had this guy, and I knew I wanted to bring some green into it. So I went ahead and picked, I had a choice between feathers and dots. And given a choice, I will always go polka dots. So I went polka dots with that, and I knew I wanted to bring in some red. And I was going to use the red feathers originally for my inner border. So again, I had this picked with this, and it would have made a great inner border and outer border. But then when you look at the quilt, there's a lot of red already in the quilt. So once I got all my blocks together, I changed my mind and said, no, I don't want to use this for the inner border. There was a lot of back and forth. This is why quilters have stash, because you will put things together and you'll be like, that doesn't look right. Maybe I need a change of fabric. There's no reason to not. So the red feathers were out of the running, and I knew I needed some red here. So I went ahead and I did the red diamonds on the other side. So that made block number 2. So let's put these all over here. Show you. Here's block 1 again and block 2. So I was happy with those. I knew the chickens were going to be on the outer border. And like I said, originally they had the red feathers as the inner border. And anytime you're auditioning, is what I call it, a fabric, like the inner border is going to be narrower than the outer border. So I would stack the inner border underneath the outer so you can get an idea of what the scale will look like. So once I put it all together though, like I said, once I sewed all these blocks together, I realized that this red feather would just be way too much red. We needed something to soften it and quiet it down. So I had some choices left, and I had this yellow and white polka dot. Now, I just told you all about yellow and how it's the star of the show, and it really likes to be front and center. This one has white polka dots in it. The white countermands the yellow and makes it softer. It is also a very, very light yellow. So it's almost like using a white in the quilt, but still giving me the warmth of the yellow. So then I decided that would be the inner border because it looked really, really cute next to our chickens. That is how I decided which fabrics would go into this quilt. Our next video, I'm going to show you about how to cut your fabric for a beginner quilt. So you will need to have, let me get my list, and I will put this down below in the comments so that you will have it. But you are going to need to have, so for our next video, the fabrics that you will need to do your quilt is for the outer border, you'll need 7/8 of a yard. And again, I will list all of these fabrics down below in the comments. For the inner border, outer borders here, 7/8 of a yard, inner border, you need 3/8 of a yard. For the one set of rails, you're going to need to have 1/3 of a yard of these 3 colors. In this set of rails, you only need 1/4 of a yard for these 3 colors. We need to make 13 of these blocks and 12 of those. Therefore, we need to make an extra one of this and need more fabric. And so you'll have that and that. So 1/3, 1/4 of those 3. And the binding will be a 1/2 yard. And I'm going to talk about binding later in the video series. But for this quilt, I have decided to then take the red feathers that I didn't use for my inner border, and it will become the binding. And the binding is that little bit of color that you will see peeking out on this edge. So this will get framed with the red, which will actually make the red, pull the red from the quilt out to the edge. So that is how we're going to pick our fabric for our beginner quilt. Again, look at a focus fabric, look at the size of your prints, look at how much predominant warm colors you want versus cool colors. If you want a shocking and bright and fun quilt like this, there are no rules. If you want something a little bit quieter, you're going to probably go towards the cooler color families, greens and blues and purples, and then just add in a little bit of warmth in one of your strip sets. But I'd love to see the combinations you guys come up with. We are going to do the next video, like I said, will be all about how to cut this project. And we will go over how to use your ruler, your rotary cutter. I'll show you how to change your blade on your rotary cutter, so in the future you'll know how to do that. And then we'll follow through with the sewing the blocks, sewing the quilt top together, sewing the borders, quilting, and binding. So I hope you've enjoyed this little sneak peek about how to pick fabrics for your quilt, and I hope you enjoyed the journey of making your first quilt with us, and I thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, make sure you like and subscribe below. You can find the Whimsical Workshop on our website, thewhimsicalworkshop.com, and that has all links to all of our other social media platforms. Thanks for joining us.